is Sahana Mandikandan, and this is the Commentary Podcast. Today's episode is looking at Native Americans at PA, or Napa, and the affinity space. We have two guests here today that are part of the affinity, and today we are going to discuss being Native American at Phillips Academy and what it means and how it impacts their lives on campus. As a disclaimer, our opinions and views are our opinions and views and do not reflect Phillips Academy or the Phillipian in any way. All right. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
I'm Anabaah, I'm a senior, and I'm from Manhattan.
I'm Marisol, I'm a lower, and I'm from New Mexico.
Okay, so today's goal is to look at the club at PA and specifically like the treatment and the recognition of Native Americans at the school. So overall, let's just start with what do you think of the awareness of Native Americans at PA?
Well, I mean, I'm sure people are aware that like, we exist, but like there's not a lot of discussions in class about us. I feel like as a people like in present, I feel like it's mostly if we are discussed in class, it's in a history class covering like pre-colonial America or colonial America. I feel like it'd be more, I mean, like something that would increase like awareness of Native Americans and like our struggles on campus would be having like more modern topics associated with us or like discussed. Yeah.
I also think that when it comes to Napa as a club and utilizing our affinity space and CAMD, if there were more like meetings again on like modern subjects, so it's not just in the past that people still think we're not here. Even if there was a couple more ASMs on it, and yes, like ASMs are a hassle, I don't necessarily always listen to them, but the more recognition we have from like a wider school perspective, and just the more we can put ourselves out there, again, I feel like even 2 or 3 more people will listen, and that'll create such a big impact on the campus as a whole.
Do you wish to put yourselves out there, or do you like wish for like the people listening to pay attention more?
I think it can be both, because Napa was revamped a few years ago after the past seniors had dropped it. And I think currently we're going under a type of like reconstruction so we can not only know what we want to do and have our mission as a club, but how we can also connect better with other affinity spaces on campus to truly get that outreach from other people of color, minorities, and just faculty on campus so we can actually get somewhere in our club.
Do you think that there's any like misconceptions with the club that you wish to change in like the revamp?
I mean, like, I think we're kind of discussing, like, what it means to be part of Napa already. Like, are we considering just, like, natives from the U.S., or does that include Canada and South America, Central America? Because I think one of the founders of Napa was a native from Peru. So, I mean, like, already, like, I feel like even within the native community itself, there's a lot of discussions around, like, identity and, like, indigeneity. So, sorry, what was the question?
Oh, like, do you think there's any misconceptions that you guys want to change?
I think misconceptions would be that we're only for United States natives.
Okay.
To add on to that, Napa's already small, so if we were able to like branch ourselves out more and people understood that it's not just Northern American natives, we could have so many more people who have experienced or know the struggles of what it's like to be indigenous and to have like genocide committed on their peoples, and to even going through current day genocide and just being colonized in the past from their indigenous.
Yeah.
Do you think that like there's a part of your like identity that you feel at home that you wish to like see in the club and also like at PA, like a part of you, part of your like your Native American heritage that you want to see in the club or you want to see in the school that isn't there?
I feel like are you talking about like
All aspects?
like
Food,
definitely.
the food, because we like, well, sometimes in commons, yes, it's not always the best, but sometimes we will get that like occasional, like, usually I think it's Latinx type of in like food. sometimes we'll have like a specialty. So I feel like even if we could get a food from like the like more native side, like that could be something. And then maybe having access to more like drum circles. I know that that's popular in the East Coast. Even I swear, there's most likely a food truck somewhere that sells fry bread.
There is. Because I went down to like New Mexico area like for this July. They had oh my god, they made like 10,000 one night for like 4th of July. Anyways, I think also like powwows. I know. Did we have one?
We had the powwow at Harvard. Yeah. But it wasn't. In my opinion, people may have misunderstood it as just for Napa. Right. I heard that we had an okay turnout, like a few more people than just Napa went, but it was still very small. So I feel like if it was more on campus.
Yeah, if we had a powwow like on campus for one weekend, I mean, that would be amazing. I think, like, I don't know what we'd have to do to get that started, but that would be pretty cool, I feel like.
Because I think it's also like pretty clear that like whether it's the food or the events, it's definitely possible. Like it's happening in like small scenarios. So it shouldn't be too hard to like expand it to actually like be what we want it to be. Okay. Do you think that PA, to branch off of that, is like as inclusive enough of like indigenous tribes and Native Americans as you want it to be? Or do you wish to like integrate yourselves like more into the community of PA?
I think in terms of the institution, from what I've heard from some of my like faculty advisors, is the school has been trying to get a lot more rural or Native American students to have like the opportunities to come here learn and like educate the rest of the school on like Native Americans, educate themselves, right? To have like those doors open for them, especially for those in rural places. Like I know that because coming from the reservation, kids don't necessarily learn calculus until they're in college, and by that point, why would they even try? So I feel like the school's trying to branch out more to those specific communities so they have a better chance at learning. So that's something on the institution's part. As for the community, I feel like, again, it always just plays back into connecting with the other affinity spaces on campus. Because if you start with CAMD, then you can branch out to the non-affinity spaces because you already have that impact and that, like cemented role here.
Yeah. I was like going off of that. I feel like they don't have a lot of outreach for like natives coming from reservations. I feel like, especially with the Southwest, like we're both Southwestern natives, so like I think we're the only ones, right?
Yeah, because you know.
Yeah, we're the only ones. So I feel like when it comes to like they have people from like all over the world on campus, but like they really do lack like natives from like Southwestern reservations, and I feel like it's a perspective that's missing at the school that.
Especially since it's like such a big change. Mm-hmm. For me personally, it wasn't that big because I have moved to a lot of different cities and different places. But from what I know, boarding schools were very much a terrible thing in the past for Native Americans. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I'm going to one, when I tell my like family members, especially my elders, they're scared because they don't know that PA as like an institution and other private schools out here are different now. They're good boarding schools meant to educate and not take away our culture and our personalities and who we are as people anymore.
That's so funny because like the first time I told my like aunts and uncles about it, like they were like, oh my god, like because my dad went to reservations boarding school, same with all my aunts, and they thought it was the same thing that I was getting sent to. I was like, no, this is Andover, like it's not a residential school, like it's 2023.
Very different.
Yeah.
And I also went to my Pueblo's charter school, and when I went there, it was all of my cousins. You knew every single person there, and you knew all of the teachers. Most of them would be my aunts or uncles. It's that type of a close community that when somebody leaves, it's a culture shock. You're not used to not seeing your family. You're not used to being across the country or not knowing the people who you're like learning with. Yeah. So it's a very big change for most kids who grew up on the res.
Mm-hmm. Do you wish that like Do you think that like boarding school for you is like a place where you can expand that culture, or do you still wish that like you were able to bring more parts of it here, especially like the idea of boarding school in the past?
I mean, because there's so little of us here, I feel like there's not really a way we can. Well, for me personally, I feel like I can't really be my whole self here sometimes because I feel like you have to like filter what you say or like what you do sometimes. And it is really hard being so far away from like my people and stuff like that, especially because when you go on the res, like, I mean, at least in my reservation, like English isn't even the language spoken there. It's Navajo, so like you can be your full authentic self there at any of the schools. But when you come to boarding school, like in Massachusetts, like you really like if there's not really a community here for you, it's kind of hard to like access that. I mean, like in terms of bringing like our culture to PA, like there's a lot of work that definitely needs to be done, especially because there's like so little of us here.
I think it's very much possible to do that, but again, having the mass really makes a difference because I know that other affinity spaces such as BSU, AFLATM, Alianza, because of how many people they have, it's so much easier to be able to get that like type of push in community to join, to hype up the crowds, to go to these different events. Whereas people out in the East Coast don't really know that much about natives in the first place. And yes, that's an issue, and yes, we can fix that, but it's a process, and it would take much longer than maybe just a few terms, right? You need to actually cement yourselves, you need to have your mission, you need to know exactly what you want to do. And from what I know, the amount of months ahead we need to plan for any event, chaperones, planning, there are actual realities of holding an event, even if it's just a drum circle, right? It's difficult when you don't have the amount of people needed to make it easier than usual.
And I think that's part of one of the reasons why we're trying to expand like our definition for like what a member can be, because I feel like there is power in numbers, and we are like 8 people strong right now, so in Napa, something like that.
I think also like one of the things that like we talked before about like what the institution's done, like this may not affect you too directly, but like I think we all know that like PA has like its land acknowledgement about like being on like native land. Do you think that it's like enough in the sense, or like do you think it actually like encompasses like what it needs to say, or is it just like not
this
helpful?
Is interesting because like the school I went to last year, or not last year, 2 years ago, they also have land acknowledgement, and I had a lot of people from that school ask me like, what do you think about land acknowledgement, because they don't agree with it. They think that like it's an excuse for the school not to do more, to say like, oh, we acknowledge we're on this land, and then like kind of draw a line and say like, oh, we've done something, which is land acknowledgement, we don't need to do more. I think it's kind of like complicated because I think the school should be doing more, definitely. Like they should be donating to the native communities around here, which they don't, because they are occupying this land. But I think at the same time, if they didn't have a land acknowledgement, then they're doing absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? Like, it is important to acknowledge land that you are on. If you're not willing to give it back, you have to acknowledge it. But I feel like, in addition, the school should be donating money to native communities that are severely underfunded and need resources for schools and homes and stuff like that.
Yeah, again, like the logistical side of it, like definitely comes into play because as an institution, not everything is possible, like lickety split. But I agree, like just doing a land acknowledgement and then moving on to a completely different subject is almost ironic that they're trying to like be more, like the institution's trying to be more inclusive. And again, I feel like donating, maybe supporting, like Napa wants to do this, we want to support smaller native businesses. And being able to like showcase native art, no matter like what type of art it is, right? But just coming down to it, yes, the school should do more. The school can always be more inclusive. It's just how to do it in a realistic and effective manner.
I think also, especially because this land has been native land for so long, obviously since this school was built so long ago, since like the beginning of this country, we've done so much like research and like learning about like different cultures, but also like cultures that have only arrived at PA 20, 30 years ago. And like we've done so much like learning about theirs, but even though like we've been on Native land and like Native Americans have been a part of America since before it actually became a country, I feel like maybe it's just me, but have you guys seen, or do you guys think that like the school itself has like done enough research about like what they're doing?
No, I wouldn't say so. Again, just time, like going back to ASMs, for example, because that is just kind of like the biggest thing that the school does do for inclusivity and recognition for different types of subjects. Last year, we only had, I think, two ASMs. One was from a professor who, in my opinion, did not relay any sort of convenient message to high schoolers, especially as teenagers. We cannot mentally capacitate that much information all at once.
Was that the fan fiction one?
Fan fiction was.
Do you remember?
No.
The one that was like, this is my grandfather, great-great-grandfather, and like someone wrote a fan fiction about him. Do you remember?
No, I don't. Wait, was that the teacher?
Yeah. She remembers, yeah.
Oh my
It was that was like what was she, like Cherokee or
Oh
something?
yeah, that was
Layla.
teacher, I think. Anyways,
I have no idea.
the past two ASMs weren't very effective. Like the first one was at the end of fall term. Nobody's gonna listen to the end of fall term's ASM, right? That's just a given. And she also wasn't the speaker. Bless her heart, she was not prepared to speak in front of the entire student body. She thought it was gonna be max like 200 kids, right? And then for the professor, he's a college professor. He's not there to like necessarily explain in like simple details, right? He's pretty much there to lecture, and that's what he did. And again, that's not necessarily his fault, but you're not gonna engage the crowd by just speaking.
Right. I feel like for an ASM that would be about like indigenous people, like two things they need to stay away from is like the whole history thing about like going into pre-colonial American history or whatever. Like I feel like they need to stay away from that. And then also I feel like if it's just about struggles too, I feel like it's important, but I feel like almost every single Native American talk is about struggles, and it'd be interesting to see something about like Native Americans in science or art or something like that.
Exactly.
Something that could be like more like
Modern.
relatable to modern and relatable to like a crowd of, high schoolers. Like I feel like we don't want like our struggles to define who we are as indigenous people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I also think like by having more positive, discussions based off of Native Americans, no matter which side of the country it is on, in Northern America specifically, I've heard from so many Native Americans like positive and just enlightening experiences and just good things that they have like done for themselves, they have experienced, right? And it's very much possible to include the positive aspects and then still tying in with the recognition of the past and how you can move forward from that and learn from any mistakes.
Right. I was just at a conference this weekend, American Indian Science and Engineering Society, and they had like a native who had worked on like the Mars rover. I mean, like imagine if we could have someone like that come and speak at ASM, instead of like someone just talking about like the history of natives in Massachusetts. Like it would be such a more like engaging and like impactful speech or lecture than just like history, because like we're not just like cemented in history, we also exist in like the modern day.
I feel like that's one of like the biggest like flaw that people are like they study like Native Americans in history class, and like usually when you study something in history class it's like not present anymore.
Yeah.
So I feel like they just like correlate with like Native American tribes and like indigenous peoples to be like not present anymore when you guys very much are. So I guess that's the saddest part when I was like thinking about this topic. So yeah, do you guys have anything else that you would like to add, or like things you want the listeners to think about?
Okay, so I think even if people were to like look up on like social media, right, like missing murdered indigenous women, that's a very big topic that's going around. And it's just important to even educate yourself a little bit on a 30-second video, right? There's that. I know in the past there have been all the like industrialization of Native communities with like plants, pipelines, oil, right? And just using the resources against the natives, right? Even just searching up a small thing like that, right? Because that's in the present. And when you know what's happening in the present, you already you have that new information that's not just in the past.
Or looking up like Willow Project or Dakota Access Pipeline, just informing oneself about those things, because those are very important to the tribes in the area. I mean, those like the Willow Project, Dakota Access Pipeline have like severely like negatively affected those communities. So just educating yourself would be great.
Yeah. And also, it's really easy, again, really, really easy on social media to just follow people, right? Even if you're not totally engaged in whatever they talk about. I know Quanah Chasing Horse, she's a model. She's been to the Met Gala 2 or 3 times, I think. And she's also an activist, right? And she's Native American. There's also if you watch Res Dogs on Hulu, right? Like, even from watching that silly, comedy show, you're learning so much about the reservation, and it's a TV show.
Scream Res Dogs, great show. What is it, season, like, 3?
I think it's 3, yeah.
Season 3's out, go watch it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming, and that's all for today.